Welcome to London for the announcement of the winners of the 2020 Architecture Drawing Prize. I'm Paul Finch, Programme Director of one of the partners of the event, World Architecture Festival. If you want to get in touch with anybody, you can do so via the websites of the organising institutions, and there'll be a new website you can go to, details of which later. And my first pleasant task is to introduce Ken Shuttleworth from Make Architecture, who conceived this wonderful prize. And Ken is just going to say a word of welcome and then introduce us to a really interesting initiative that Make and Sir John Soane's Museum have come up with this year. Ken.
Thank you, Paul. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you for hosting this. You know, when Make established this prize back in 2018, its lofty vision was to be the best drawing prize in the world and celebrating the art and skill of architectural drawings across different mediums. As college, I was known as Ken the Pen, and I've always been fascinated by drawing. It's always been part of my life. And it's been a humbling experience and a huge privilege to judge such a high caliber of entries and witness the growth internationally of this prize year on year. And it's especially warming this year to see how the beauty of drawing as a universal medium has played a credible role in architects' lives during this pandemic. So I'd like to take this opportunity just to thank everyone who's made it a success. You know, it's become a fantastic success. The passion and commitment of my own team at Make, World Architecture Festival, Sir John Soane Museum, and the stellar panel of judges who I'm really grateful to, old and new, who are on the journey with us over the last few years. And a special thanks to Lisa Durante and Luby Makhtari at WAF, who without them, it would all be all going wrong. So thank you very much to them. I have to say, as you know, sad as it is, the restrictions have prevented the Soane exhibition opening as planned this year. In the real world, we've moved into a virtual place that allows us to share this year's exhibition across the globe. So it's different, but it's actually really exciting, and it makes it accessible to tens of thousands of people, more than those who would visit the Soane Museum in London, and it fulfills one of the prize's key ambitions of making it truly accessible for everybody. So during lockdown, we at Make explored architecture in the virtual world and designed a virtual space to showcase the Architecture Drawing Prize in 2020. And the importance of placemaking and the architect's skills in this is all part of digital experience. So our ambition was to create a sense of place to complement the physical architecture, where access and ease of movement and user experience is as relevant virtually as it is in the real world. So the gallery, which we've created, will be live at 6 o'clock. I just briefly wanted to show you a few slides, just to give you a taster of the gallery we've created. So, Luby, yes, it's slide 1. It just shows the entrance, the sort of linear arrangement of a gallery where it's a clear path through a garden into basically into this fantastic new gallery. And if you go to slide 2, the gallery is sort of conceived as sort of beautifully proportioned pavilions, basically divided into rooms with a break in between. As we don't need to worry about the rain, we can just walk out into this garden, back into another room. And in the rooms we have, on slide 3, you'll see the rooms themselves with this is space between the rooms. So there's gardens that look out. So you get this sort of between the rooms, get this view between the galleries, and have this sort of connection back to the real world in inverted commas. And the final slide just shows you inside the actual rooms itself. You can see we've actually put on opposing walls. We've hung the actual art that's been created for the prize. It's been curated very, very carefully. So it gives you a taste of what you can actually see when you go into the video at 6 o'clock. You'll see what it's all about. So it's really important to us. I hope you get a chance to explore the gallery later, but in the meantime, thank you to everybody again. I'd like to hand over now to Louise Stewart of the Soane Museum to take you through the curation. Thank you.
Hello everyone, My name's Louise Stewart and I'm the Curator of Exhibitions at Sir John Soane's Museum. Today what I'd like to do is to give you a tour of this exhibition of the 12 shortlisted entries from the Architecture Drawing Prize 2020. They're drawn from all three categories of hand-drawn, hybrid and digital. So let's start with Clement Laurencio's Apartment Number 5, a labyrinth and repository of spatial memories. This work was created during lockdown and it focuses on Laurencio's memories of a recent trip to India. It includes lots of individually hand-drawn images digitally stitched together in a way that's almost imperceptible. They include plans, elevations and perspective views in a really complex composition. And the level of detail here is absolutely astonishing in each individual vignette. And that makes this drawing incredibly appealing. It's got something of the doll's house or the miniature about it. And I would urge visitors to the digital exhibition to really spend some time zooming in on this image and appreciating all the detail within it. Next, we have Hans Willemeyer's Here, Everywhere, Orchard. It's an illustration of the disorientation that was for some a byproduct of lockdown. This feeling of insanity occasioned by being trapped in a small urban flat. And what we see here is a really witty juxtaposition of what seems like a very slick and seductive image, which is reminiscent of the types of images that you see advertising luxury apartment buildings, with the feverish experience of the interior. This very strange and surreal world of these people going crazy inside during lockdown. Theatre of Fictions by Shahar Cohen and Jerem Rosen is a digital collage which provides us with a utopian vision of an alternative marine ecosystem. And here we have figures that seem to be plucked from a Hieronymus Bosch painting, cavorting in something akin to a giant water park crafted from machinery and the remains of heavy industry. This is a really playful yet complex image which has a great sense of depth and a very strong feeling of narrative. You can create stories when you look at this. Joshua Bristow's Construction of Heritage, A Case for a Discrete Industry, is very visually successful. But actually, these images show drawing as part of a process, and this really sums up one of the aims of the Architecture Drawing Prize, to showcase drawing as a way of thinking and an integral part of the design process. Chenglin Jin's Rereading Metropolis is a site study or analysis of San Francisco's Sunset District. It layers the ecological systems of the city, and it's got a wonderful sense of scale and really expresses the ways that different parts of cities are connected. And this seems really poignant at the moment, given the isolation that's felt in our cities at the moment, and we've really lost that sense of connectivity. Marc Brousse's depiction of Hashima, Battleship Island, shows the former coal mining centre, which was once the most densely populated place in the world, just off Japan's coast. It was abandoned in 1974, and its crumbling concrete tower blocks are today an eerie tourist attraction. In the drawing, there's a layer of visible ink, which you can't see just now, but which is made visible under a black light. And the figures that we see then represent the soul of the city. Jeff Stikeman's Colony Hall shows a performance venue designed for a private school in Connecticut. The drawing was made as a gift for a colleague of the client who collected Piranesi engravings. And this is really interesting because it uses lots of the visual language that we see in Piranesi. So the drawing projects into the future, envisioning this modern building, which actually hadn't been built at the time that the drawing was made, as a ruin. but also references the past. So, for example, including the trappings of 18th century archaeological expeditions, and making a real point about the way in which buildings are passed down from generation to generation, and their value in that they are preserved and uncovered as ruins. Jack Ingham's work is called Fetching a Bucket of Steam, and it is a reference to the linen industry in Belfast, which was once one of the most important linen producing centres in the world. Here the judges were really impressed by the sense of restraint. We've got one very detailed section juxtaposed with repetitions, which are much simpler, and that variation is really reminiscent of hand drawing, but also refers to the process of digital drawing. So this is really quite a complex and a very interesting image. Airplane Towers by Victor Hugo of Azedo and Cheryl Zhu is a proposal to solve the dual problem of decommissioned airplanes as a result of COVID-19 and a lack of affordable housing. It wittily uses the conventions of architectural drawing with its elevations from different angles to stress that this is a real proposal, sending grounded airplanes back into the sky by stacking them into tower blocks. This is a really witty and a very successful image. Matthew Poon's work, Polymorphous Spatial Monosodium Glutamate, really bears detailed scrutiny. It's a beautiful, delicate image that uses line in a very ornamental way. There's a strong sense of depth here, and the use of light and shade has created a very sculptural work. There's a sense of the creation of a whole architectural language here, in fact, a whole world. John O'Yu's Mechanical Theatre of Smash Palace provides a dystopian image of a city in which cars have come to dominate even more than they do today. It includes hand-drawn figures on a digital background, and the composition here is incredibly complex and clever, utilising the reflective surface of the car wing mirror here to really sum up the car's dominance in the society depicted. And the last work in the exhibition is Anatomy of Fear by Kyra Sui Yu Yong. This is a really complex drawing, and its high level of detail makes it incredibly convincing. It's very bleak and very beautiful, and this image really draws the viewer in. The site depicted is the recently recommissioned Hamalka nuclear power plant on Japan's east coast, and there's speculation that the high likelihood of an earthquake hitting the region will lead to Fukushima-style disaster in the near future. And that really, I think, throws the uncanny beauty of this image into relief.
Louise, thank you very much for that run through. And of course, the idea was that all those drawings would be exhibited at the Soane, as the shortlist has been exhibited in previous years. And there is still hope and expectation that that will happen, quite possibly combined with the winners and shortlisted entries in the 2021 competition. Now, I'd like to bring in Joshua Bristow, who's one of the shortlisted entrants this year, with Louise, just to say something about the Soane itself, because I think, Joshua, apart from eventually having your lovely drawing, or drawings, I should say, exhibited at the Soane, you had an interest in this building from your student days, I think.
Did, Paul. So as a first year at Cambridge, it was our first building we visited as a group, and we were all asked to survey a fragment within the museum. So, 30 of us all selected different rooms and different fragments within it, and, and drew from life and took these fragments back to the studio and made models from them. So it was a really kind of immersive way into thinking about architecture.
Now, I didn't know that the Soane did sleepovers. Louise, is this a common thing, or is it once in a blue moon?
Well, I'm not so sure about the sleepovers, but actually it's really interesting the way Joshua describes using the collection, because it's exactly what Soane intended when he put it together and opened it to students. Because Soane was one of the leading architects in Georgian London, but he was also a great teacher. He was Professor of Architecture at the Royal Academy, and that involved lecturing to architectural students. And when he created his museum and put together all the architectural fragments and the decorative objects that he'd collected, he did so as an educational resource in order to welcome students of architecture and sculpture and painting into his home so they could study from these objects. And they're often objects that it was very difficult to access in person. So they're objects from the great collections, or casts of objects from the great collections in the Mediterranean, in Italy, in France. And to have these casts, to have access to these objects, was something really special. So it's lovely that the collection actually continues to be used and inspire in exactly the way Soane intended it to.
Yeah, and I should say that the images you're seeing on the screen are of the winners and exhibited entries from the 2019 competition. A wonderful gallery space, a real treat to visit. And there's something very special, Joshua, isn't there, about the architecture of the Soane Museum. It's a little difficult to put your finger on it. I always recommend it as a sort of first port of call for anyone who comes to London with an interest in architecture who hasn't been there before.
I agree. It's very quietly nestled behind Holborn, and it's a kind of cabinet of curiosities you unfold. And even there's a sort of ambiguity of time throughout the museum. Even these cabinets that were designed by Crusoe St. John are sort of paying homage to the original cabinets found in the museum, but they're slightly more contemporary. And each room is, I mean, it's just a fantastic way that Soane carved up the space. I mean, I think my favourite room is probably the picture room, which contains over 120 paintings. I mean, I think in that room there's a real kind of boiling point between representation and architecture. It's fascinating.
Now, we think of the Soane Museum as relating to the past, even though actually it runs many contemporary exhibitions. But actually, there's another aspect to what it does, which is all about today and all about the future. And I wondered, Louise, if you might like to say something about the Soane's youth program, which I think is not, this is not architecture students. I mean, this is younger people generally.
Yeah, absolutely. So the museum has a youth panel, and they are comprised of young people between the ages of 16 and 24. And what they do is they advise us on the opportunities that we offer, on the ways that we can engage young people with the museum. And we also invited them to respond to this exhibition, and they responded really creatively to the shortlisted entries in the Architecture Drawing Prize, and they actually produced an amazing intervention, which includes lots of fantastic material that the shortlisted entrants provided for us that relates to their drawings and really shines a light on the way that those drawings were produced. And so that's a film and a soundscape that are available as part of the digital exhibition on the Soane Museum website. So I'd very much recommend having a look at that.
Great access for all on that one. Just to say that some of the images you've seen, the ones we're looking at now, doesn't look too great, but actually it's a wonderful work by Anna Heringer, which is it's a tapestry, which Louise's predecessor decided could qualify for the hand-drawn category, and in fact it won it. And it's a master plan for a site in Rudrapur in Bangladesh. And earlier you saw the digital winner, which was the overall winner, a rather remarkable work by a Berlin artist called Marcus Passing, which was City in a Box. And then the final one, which is what we're looking at now, which won the hybrid category, was a rather complicated title, but it was Metabolist of a Dementia Nation by Jerome Shinhao Ng. I think we're now going to just take a look at the judges for the 2020 awards and competition. and some of whom are here this evening. But just to run through the ones who are here, so Louise Stewart from the Soane, you know about. Lily Jenks, architect, teacher, landscape designer, their own studio. Narinder Sagu from Foster and Partners, who runs the whole of their digital operation. And then left to right across the bottom, Ben Langlands and Nikki Bell, artists who've been judges with us right from the beginning 4 years ago. Pablo Bronstein, a new judge this year, an artist and a very witty one at that. Ken Shuttleworth, you know, and finally Gary Simmons from the William Hare Group, who've been sponsors of the award in the past. I think without further ado, what we will now do, I'm going to invite Ken Shuttleworth to announce the winner of the Lockdown Prize. And this was an innovation this year because we hadn't had lockdowns before. And so we said that we would give a prize to a drawing which didn't have to be submitted specifically for this prize, but something that represented the extraordinary experience we've all had over the last 12 months. So Ken, over to you and tell us who the winner is.
Yeah, Paul, that's not me. I don't know this one. I'm sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay, because the Lockdown Prize winner, I will tell you who it is. And Luby, if you'd like to put the image up and introduce the winners themselves. And here we are. It is the Airplane Tower by Victor Hugo Azevedo and Sherilyn Lee Shu. Sorry about my dodgy pronunciation. And I'd like firstly to congratulate both of you on winning this. This was the judges were hugely taken by this. It's very witty, but also it's serious as well as being witty, which in the UK can be quite dangerous, because if you're witty, people think you can't possibly be serious because you like to make people reflect in an amused way. But you've managed to do this, and before getting you to say something about your winning entry and showing us some other material which contributed to it, can I just say that Populous, the sports architect, are using aircraft fuselages in a stadium project that they're working on in a European city. So actually your proposition about redundant elements in the aviation industry being used for construction was extraordinarily prescient. So over to you guys, and I think you've got some things to show us.
Hey everyone, I'm Victor Azevedo from Robert A.M. Stern Architects, and I'm here with my partner, Cheryl. Cheryl.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Lushu, also from Robert A.M. Stern Architects.
And this is it's an honor. We're very happy about this, and Cheryl will say a few words about the how this idea came to be, like a little bit of the background of this project. So Cheryl, you have it.
Great. Next slide, please. So our project is conceived during the COVID era, as you all know, and due to the pandemic, the already shrinking airline industry is witnessing a huge, sharp decline in the air travel, which resulted in a large-scale premature retirement of airplanes that are still in stellar conditions. So the image you are seeing here that we created, we really see airplanes as buildings that can fly, because the fuselages themselves are already waterproof, insulated, and structurally sound. So we thought to ourselves, why not upcycle them as building materials? Next, please. And here we're showing you some preliminary sketches that shows our initial idea of how we can potentially leverage the architectural potential of airplanes and give them a second life as a tower by inserting them as individual components into a structural armature. Next, please. And the other side of this story is the pandemic really worsened the affordable housing crisis. People are getting evicted and houses are getting foreclosed. This crisis disproportionately affected the more vulnerable population. So Victor and I kind of envision our tower to help ease this dire need to increase the housing stock. This diagram you're seeing shows a variety of human interactions that we imagine can occur within our project. The graphic of the diagram really speaks to and resemble one of those safety instruction cards you will find inside an airplane. Next, please. So ultimately, we are proposing this mass-producible, replicable structural systems that allows for the vertical stacking of decommissioned airplanes into an affordable tower. In the diagram below, you can see that we arrange the private residential units to the side that are flanking the amenity core where people can have different kinds of interactions. And in the next slides, you will be able to see how these earlier digital and analog studies really help us create the hybrid final drawings as you're seeing here. This format of drawing also help us further investigate, actually refine on our initial design. In this particular axon, you can see that by the act of slicing the fuselages in various ways, we actually are able to provide flexibility to accommodate families of various sizes and needs. And now Victor is going to talk more about our drawing process of how these images are created.
So next, please. So here in this image, you see this elevational drawing. And what's really interesting about this is that you see the repetition of the iconic shape of the airplane, of the airplane. So, and this does a lot of things. And one of them is like, to one side, you see the grouping of all the tails, which creates a very unique and dynamic facade element to one side, and also with the grouping of all the different airline logos, creating like this cool dynamic effect. And on the other side, you see the slicing of the fuselages also allows for a different kind of architectural conditions to emerge from the structure of the airplane itself. So in here, we're creating these balconies when we slice the plane. And you see at one of the sides, you see also like the cockpits just peeking out of the tower, which is the thing that we thought was like the little nice move. So a little bit of the process of this drawing, in the next slide, you can see we started this drawing with, first we had a background of this vintage paper background to create some texture, to bring back the texture of a freehand drawing, a physical drawing. And we started obviously with the line work. This is like the preliminary line work that generated this drawing. If you go to the next, in the next image, in this image, we started to treat this line drawing more of like a painting. So we started to paint and imagine how the shadows would be cast in this drawing. So this really creates a different level of depth to the tower. And it really, and then on the next slide, we show that we're not only thinking about how the shadow is cast, but also how light is hitting the building. So it creates a different level of depth in this very complex tower. And then the next image, which is the last one, we introduce color. And you see here that we are sticking with primary colors as a way to tie this composition together. And this is the final image. And I think what we created here by revealing some aspects of some pieces of the plane, like the cockpits and the sections, what we created is something, it's a building that is new, a building that is strange yet familiar, because you see like the little airplane speaking out. It was generated from an idea that was it is innovative yet kind of obvious right now. And lastly, and what we think is very important for this project is that we created this sort of a poetic irony of sending airplanes that no longer fly back to the sky by means of this tower. So that was our project. So thank you all. We're very happy with this, and thank you.
Well, thank you both. And I think, you know, your logo that you showed, which is a kind of take on the old Pan Am logo, everything about this project was really, really well considered and beautifully executed. Now, I think actually what we're going to do is we're going to move on, because I think the judges will have something to say about this, but in part of a more general discussion about the work that they saw this year. So Luby, if we may, we're going to move on to the first category winner, which is the hand-drawn. And as in previous years, this category attracted more entries than any of the others, not by a huge margin, but it's quite interesting, the notion that hand drawing is somehow vanishing, at least as far as this competition is concerned. It's far from being the case. And I'm going to invite Louise Stewart to announce who the winner is. Louise.
Thanks very much, Paul. Well, the judges were all really impressed by the originality of technique in this drawing, by its sense of depth and detail. And I'm really delighted to announce that the winner of the hand-drawn category is Marc Brousse with Dear Hashima.
Marc is with us, so Marc, unmute, and perhaps you'd like to tell us about your drawing, and I think you can introduce a very lovely, I think it's about a 3-minute video. Over to you.
Yep, thank you. Well, I'm really pleased and honored to win the prize, and that I grasped the eye and the sensibility of the jury. So thank you all. And to explain first the artwork, indeed would be nice to see the video, and then I could give more details about the whole reflection I bring in that artwork.
That's great. We'll look at the video now.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Luby. So this artwork is part of a series called Gazing the Crossroad of Civilization. So what I'm trying to explore is the different strengths of the architectural writings that civilization developed since ancient time till nowadays. And so nourished by all the culture and the different symbols proper to every civilization, I tried to recreate a kind of timeless fragment which reveal the memory of the place and the soul of this urbatopia. In the case of Hashima, it's interesting to see how the men take advantage of a natural savage territory to condition the urban settings to feed a country and even like for the proper needs of the Japanese period in late 90s. And so you have this way of developing and exploring a rapid industrialization and urbanization for the human needs. So on one side, on the south side, you can see the mine, the mine sites which is developed, and on the north side of the island, this is the residential and the facilities urban developments.
I just want to get a quick comment from Louise on this about what you particularly liked about this.
Thanks, Paul. Well, I think there's just incredible density of detail here, and this is not a large drawing. It's quite a small piece of work, and it really mirrors the site itself, being the most densely populated place on Earth. It's incredibly, incredibly built up, and you get a real sense of that. And also of this island as an object, you get this real sense of weight in the way that it's depicted here in this very unusual composition, actually. And then there's the originality of the technique, and Marc, it's straightalism that you call this technique that you've developed. And it's this technique of using these very small marks to build up this density of shading and of line, which just works incredibly well and is really, really original.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Marc, and many congratulations. And I know some people who've been kind of joining the chat line, you know, they just love that video. I should say that this whole program will be available to view for many months, actually, on the websites of the organizers, and the Drawing Prize has its own site. So if you want to get any of your pals to catch up, that will be perfectly possible. In the meantime, we're going to move on to the digital category and to announce the winner of this, who better than Narinder Sagoo. Narinder.
Hi, Paul, and hello, everyone. Well, first of all, it's been wonderful opportunities, particularly through the year we've had to indulge ourselves in such wonderful entries and see more detail in each one and meet the candidates themselves. The winner of the digital prize for the Drawing Prize this year is Rereading Metropolis by Shenlin Jin. It's an incredible, for me, it's really, although it's entirely digital, it has all of the wonderful qualities that we've enjoyed throughout our careers in hand drawing. It's, for me, you know, a real celebration of the conventional art of drawing in plan, investigating various scales from the macro city scale to the micro human. And as we all know, being in lockdown, we really understand more than ever before what it's like to be a person alone within a large city. And this drawing kind of exasperate that kind of theme. Then the hierarchy we thought was just wonderful. The storytelling of line widths and depths and types. And then last but not least at all, the composition and the beauty of the drawing, I think is extraordinary and is just a delight to see. So congratulations to Shenglin Jin.
Thank you. And Chenglin Jin is with us, and perhaps you'd like to introduce your work, the drawings and analysis that contributed to it. And then I think at the end, we've got a very short video just showing how it was. I'm sorry, we don't. It's just drawings. So Chenglin Jin, over to you.
Hi, thank you. This is my school project. I would say it's an analytical drawing. It consists of a city's, the elements such as water body and waterway, tourism, sport, shop and road, and railway and public transport. So all sorts of elements involves this drawing. So this drawing shows very initial steps towards my final project. So I divide this map into different categories. So in this picture, it shows business districts like red dots, and the black colored hatch is a like public, like nature public elements. So the next, this one shows it's an exploration, the further exploration of city elements. So it's using different techniques to show the different elements. So it's one part of the process. This is after the drawing and towards my final architecture project. So I'm rereading I was rereading the final map to different degree, more like a three-dimensional way to express the drawing, so that I can produce an architectural design. So next. And this image combines different drawings and lay them out in a row and shows. And I can use like folding and cut, to make a different module to produce the final architecture design. So it's part of the process, but it's exploring the drawing. Different way to express the drawing to serve my my ideas. Next. This is also an exploration of my drawing. So it focuses on the center part of elements. There's a rectangular let's say frame, and when I look at this drawing, when I explore this drawing, it shows architectural elements and depths, such as I can manipulate this drawing to serve my final design. Next. This one used different techniques, giving, although it's a 2D drawing, but it giving a depth using color and emphasizing different elements, such as waterway is the waterway is used, water body used as a vibrant color, and the black one is black color contracts the water body, so it pops out. So I can fold it and make a three-dimensional object. Next. Next. So those images are all the steps towards my final architecture project. So it's just a different explorations. Next, and this is another exploration, but this is I use this one to produce my architecture design. This is typical because I use a frame, a zoomed version of a whole city, the Sunset District city, and I zoomed in to a particular part and see what I can find through these drawings and serve my final project too. That's it. Thank you.
Well, Chenglin Jin, many congratulations, and I think what the judges liked about this, I mean, it would have been even more amazing had we seen all your preparatory drawings, because they obviously show the richness and complexity of thought that went into your final work. So many congratulations. And we're going to move now, if we may, to the final category, which is the hybrid category. And to announce the winner, please welcome Lily Jenks.
Hi, Paul. Thank you so much. And thank you, Ken, especially for setting up this prize. It's been such a pleasure talking about drawing and looking hard at architectural drawing during this time, filling our eyes with so many beautiful, inspiring images. So the winner of the hybrid category, the judges were particularly enthralled by the kind of use of architectural conventions, different architectural conventional drawings layered on top of each other, the really rich detail in all of the design, and the way that the drawing, like some of the best use of hand drawing, kind of summons the drawing from the page, almost kind of extracting it from the page. Also using the hybrid, using the computer in an interesting way. So the winner of the prize is the Apartment 5, A Labyrinth of Repository of Spatial Memories by Clement Morencio. Congratulations.
And Clement, we have you with us, so perhaps you'd like to introduce some of your preparatory work, and that does end with a very short video just showing how the final piece was assembled. Over to you.
Great, thank you so much. I'm honored and humbled to receive the award. My internet's quite slow, so I'll have to rely on Luby's kind of navigation skills. Luby, if you could just get to the first photograph, please. That's the photograph. Yes, perfectly. Thanks. So I kind of wanted to talk about the process of the drawing, of how I came to the drawing and how it kind of evolved. And the project and the drawing kind of started coming together around March 2020. And that was around the time of the first lockdown, which was quite difficult for every one of us, particularly because we were restrained in our movements. And for me, particularly, it was quite interesting to know that I won't be able to re-experience the places or to be able to travel once again. So in a ways, I looked introspectively and I looked towards my memories as a way to kind of travel away from my apartment, from my confinement. Luckily, a couple of months before, we went on a trip to India with my unit from university. And there, that's where I experienced Louis Kahn's IIM, Doshi's Sangath, Le Corbusier's masterpieces. And this was quite poignant for me because they kind of had vivid memories and recollections within myself. So the first image is an image of Kahn's IIM. Next, please. And then I was interested in this idea of flashbacks because within the apartment, what I was able to do is I was able to kind of travel back to a past in which I could escape from this confinement. Next, please. So then I tried to kind of, with the photographs that I had, consolidate where I found these spatial kind of photographs and then put them within the apartment. So then the photograph also resembled kind of the keyhole in which of my door. Next, please. So I had this kind of body of photographs from the trip, but also from the apartment. And I tried to kind of spatially map them in a ways where I could see where the apartment ended and where my memories kind of took over. And then I could kind of inhabit the spaces from my memories. Next, please. And then this is just the zoom of the drawing, kind of knowing and sequentially placing them, kind of creating an order of where these flashbacks of memories were within the apartment. Next, please. And on the left is one of, well, here's an example, kind of a shard of light passing through my apartment in which I was staying at. And then that also echoed and resembled this shard of light, which was happening within, it was Le Corbusier's mill owners. And I thought that was quite striking, and this idea of flashbacks kind of took together. Next. And then this is when I tried to kind of spatialize these memories, what it meant, for example, how large is a memory, what scale is a memory, and it went beyond just recollections and atmospheres and kind of spatializing this memory into the apartment. So the drawings kind of evolved from hand drawings, which were created on A3 paper, which I could then scan in quite easily, given the circumstances. Next. So then the total of kind of individual drawings made up about, the final drawing was made up of about 30 individual hand drawings. Next, please. And then I think these two next photographs are just scanning these drawings and to then digitally compose them within for the drawing. And I think the last slide is just the video that I'd just like to talk over. There's no sound or anything, but just to kind of explain some of this drawing, I wanted to try and explore what the apartment was, not just in terms of a space for keeping us safe, but also kind of a place and a vessel for our memories to kind of cohabit. And it was more than just a physical space, but much more poetically inclined than that. Kind of thinking of Bachelard's Poetics of Space and so on. And also within the context of the Soane Museum, Sir John Soane was able to create his home into this kind of a repository of various artifacts from the past, and each of these had their own memories. So I was interested in the way of how can I spatialize these memories and what happens if they cohabitate within the real kind of space of the apartment, as well as letting the imagination kind of flow together. And also thinking about Borges's Funes de Memorias, how memories are so vivid with us. And within the whole context, this idea of just pausing and kind of not taking our past experiences and our past spaces for granted. So yeah, that's my drawing. Thank you for listening.
Well, Clement Laurencio, many congratulations. And again, an example of the richness of thinking as well as technique, which has gone into this year's winners. And we'll be announcing the overall winner from the 3 category winners very shortly. But firstly, I'd just like to introduce a video with a few words from the director of the Sir John Soane's Museum, Brousse, who's been a great supporter of this award, and here he is.
Good evening. My name is Brousse. I'm director of Sir John Soane's Museum. And it's my pleasure to say a few words about this event, which is always a high point in our year at the Soane, especially because it draws entrants from around the world in an architectural competition. It's sometimes been said that the computer has destroyed architectural draftsmanship, but I think the entries shown here prove the contrary. Certainly, it's gratifying to see that both hand-drawn and digital artifacts are not antithetical, but actually complementary, and that their combination can produce new artifacts, new developments. The Architectural Drawing Prize represents a continuity between our age and that of Sir John Soane. Certainly in his lectures and in his practice, Soane stressed the centrality of draftsmanship to architecture. Yet he was also interested in new technologies and embraced them in his work and elsewhere in his life. So I think he would have welcomed the idea of the possibilities afforded by digital and hybrid composition, as we see here tonight. So it remains for me to say my thanks to all the entrants in this year's show. And also I would like to thank our project partner, Make Architects, for creating this year's virtual exhibition space, and to the World Architectural Festival for their support and expertise in hosting tonight's event. Last but not least, I want to thank my colleagues in exhibitions and learning at the Soane, as well as our youth panel, which provided a new layer of content for this event. And of course, we very much hope that you will visit the Soane's website to see this display of architectural ingenuity, as well as the other treasures that we hold at Sir John Soane's Museum. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Bruce, and thanks once again for your ongoing support for this programme. Well, we're now going to reveal the winner, the overall winner of the 2020 Architecture Drawing Prize, and to announce the winner, Ken Shuttleworth.
Thank you, Paul. It's been a tough decision. All three were amazing, amazing drawings, and actually to see what we've just seen tonight, which we hadn't seen as judges before, is just phenomenal to see the way those drawings are actually produced. So I take my hat off to everybody, all the three entries. They're just amazing to see the way you put them together. And I think it's difficult, but the overall winner of the fourth Architectural Drawing Prize is Clement Laurencio. Well done, Clement. Fantastic drawing. I think to see the way you put it together, I had no idea how you did it. It's very, very beautiful. And it's interesting to see the elements of time being introduced into drawing, the elements of flashbacks, of actually thinking about where you've been and memories, and bringing that together in an incredibly beautiful drawing during an international global pandemic. So congratulations, Clement. Well done indeed.
Thank you. Congratulations, Clement. And I'm now going to invite the judges to unmute and let us see you again, because I think we'll leave this lovely drawing on the screen. But for our remaining few minutes of this event, which I repeat will be available on Catch Up on various websites, I'm going to ask the judges just to say a couple of words about their impressions of this year's event from their personal judging experience, and any other comments they'd like to make really on the winner or any of the other drawings that we've seen this evening. So Louise, can I start with you? I think you were very, very happy with the overall winner.
Absolutely. I just love that drawing. I think it's particularly fitting that it's shown in the context of the website of Sir John Soane's Museum and a prize in which the museum is a partner, because there's something very Soanean about it, this sense of a labyrinthine interior, of navigating it and constantly being surprised, and also just the level of detail in this drawing is absolutely astonishing, and it was fascinating to see how it was produced. So I'm so pleased that it's been awarded the overall prize, but also in terms of the overall quality of the entrance and actually the variety of approaches to architectural drawing, seeing the different ways it's being used to inform practice has been absolutely fascinating. This was my first year judging the Architecture Drawing Prize, and it's been surprising and just a real joy. So thank you very much to everyone who entered the prize, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what you come up with for next year as well.
Lily Jenks, you were a first-time judge this year. How did you find it?
Yeah, as I said, it's been just incredibly wonderful experience, but really joyful to see. One of the things that it has got me really thinking about is what is the different how is an architectural drawing different from a non-architectural drawing, art drawing? And I think that's a question that we touched on a bit in our conversations, and I think we'll continue to, how is, what makes it particularly architectural? Is it the use of the architectural conventions, like in this drawing that we're seeing these overlap perspectival cuts, sections, plans? Is it about a kind of precision that we understand that, yes, actually these aeroplanes could somehow structurally work, and that there's a kind of aspect of measurable objective rigor to it? Or is it in the kind of seduction of a space that we can feel and kind of emote to almost? And I think those questions are really interesting to me in how we define this as an architectural prize rather than another type of drawing prize.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me bring in Narinder Sagu on this, because Narinder, we've had conversations over the last 2 or 3 years on this question of what constitutes a drawing. And as mentioned earlier, I suppose the extreme example is, can a piece of tapestry be a drawing? Certainly as a piece of craft, the idea was that yes, indeed it can. This is very, very fluid territory, especially given the equally fluid relationship between the world of the hand-drawn and the digital.
Yeah, I mean, I really hope that it forever remains a fluid territory. I think even if, you've seen today that you can't really define what's digital and what's hand-drawn in the drawings that we've seen. And that's been the real beauty. In essence, I think what it's telling us that drawing is not about the technique. It's not whether you use a mouse, a pen, pencil, or a brush. It's the act of mark making. It's the act of intention within the lines and the shapes that appear on whatever medium it might be. The stories that are being told, the transfer of thoughts, the transfer of memories in this case, which I think is so incredible in Clement's drawing. Those memories transferring themselves into a visual representation. In that sense, architectural drawing is all about that. It's about memories, and it's all about visions of a future that doesn't exist, and bringing them together, telling stories with a hierarchy. So whether digital or hand-drawn or hybrid, I think drawing is drawing, and that territory will always remain fluid. I think we see every year that it's difficult to define those boundaries, and I think it's a real celebration of the profession in the way that we've embraced technology whilst holding on to the kind of heritage of storytelling in architecture.
Thank you very much. Ken Shuttleworth, this program's founded 4 years ago. I think it's fair to say that while there are brilliant individual works every year, in overall terms, I think it's gone from strength to strength.
I mean, I think it just vindicates, the idea this is going to be the best drawing prize in the world. I mean, every single year we get these incredible entries, and it's getting better and better and better, as you say. And I think it, in a way, for me, as somebody who's like almost born with a pencil in their hands, it's magical to see these images up on the screen and see how people have done them. So for me, as a prize, it's just so important that we keep going with this. We do it year after year. We actually make sure that it gets better and better, and to make it the best in the world. And for me, the fact that we draw as architects is what defines us in a way. We actually love drawing. Many of us, whether it's on a computer or whether it's by hand or whether it's a combination of the two. I think it's really important to celebrate this. And the fact that it's in lockdown is one of the things you can actually do. You can always draw. I mean, nobody can stop you drawing, which I think is always really good. They can take away your computer, but they can never take away your pencil. So for me, drawing is just the sort of basic almost essence of what we do as architects. And for me, it's just fantastic. And I just, again, in all of the drawings that people have done, and thank the judges and everybody involved at WAF and the Soane. It's just wonderful and inspiring as well that what Brousse said in his video about Soane. I mean, it's absolutely fantastic. He would have welcomed this sort of digital world, as much as we have. And it's just as great that if Soane was here, I'm sure he'd be celebrating along with the rest of us of this incredible move from pencil to computer and back again. So fantastic, Paul. Thank you.
Well, I should say that the physical works our plan is to put them on display at World Architecture Festival Live, which is planned to take place in Lisbon this December from the 1st to the 3rd. And we will also display, provided nothing else horrible happens, the winners of the 2021 prize, which will be launched this summer on the usual time scale. I think that brings us to a close this evening, but for a very brief preview of the marvelous digital gallery created by Make with Sir John Soane's Museum, which you will be able to visit pretty much as of now, actually, and you'll be able to look at the drawings virtually in a new virtual environment. Let's see the trailer, Luby.
Sir John Soane's Museum is excited to explore the potential of digital exhibitions with Make through the Architecture Drawing Prize. It has been fascinating to hang an exhibition without the usual concerns relating to scale, conservation and security. This exhibition really throws into relief the ways in which virtual displays can support the physical museum in its aim of reaching new audiences, engaging them with our work and inspiring them.
And from all of us here in London, a very good evening, and thank you for joining us. Good evening.